In my video talking about how we eventually got to play Mother 3, I talked about the game's story development and the story of how a fan project picked up the pieces after Nintendo dropped the ball. That team have openly offered their localization to Nintendo if they ever want to bring Mother 3 to the West. Celebrities have tweeted about localizing Mother 3. Reggie Fils-Aimé set a fan on fire to avoid talking about it, and the franchise has greater brand awareness than ever before in the West. So why have Nintendo continued to ignore Mother 3 fans? There's been a lot of speculation over the years, and I think that I might have the answer. Before we dig into those reasons though, I suspect this video could end up getting suppressed due to some sensitive subjects that we'll be talking about today, so please give this video a like and then share it around to help us defeat the gods of the algorithm. And if you're new here, get subscribed because I make thoughtful and thought-provoking videos for gamers who love RPGs. Finally, this video will contain descriptions of moments within the game, obviously, so there are spoilers ahead, though I will only talk about the bare minimum. So, with that out of the way, I am SuperDerek, and I think that these are the 4 real reasons Nintendo will never localize Mother 3. Nintendo got its foothold in the US markets in the mid-80s following the video game crash that by now most people have already heard about and understood the general causes of. One of the ways that Nintendo of America ensured their success, though, was by separating themselves from the competition in a number of ways. They established a Western branch called Nintendo of America, which serves as an ambassador between the Japanese Nintendo company and the American public. We often think of the Nintendo of America as being a Western publishing arm of Nintendo, which is true to an extent, but another big part of what they do is they manicure the Nintendo brand in the West. It may come as no surprise to my fans that Japanese pop culture might be prone to clashing with puritanical Western sensibilities of the 1980s, which is smack dab in the middle of the Satanic Panic era. Nintendo of America would be the lubricant between the two nations, and they accomplished this by establishing an approval system. The Nintendo Seal of Quality and Approval not only ensures the quality of a game bearing the emblem, but also ensures that it adheres to a set of guidelines for game developers that would help prevent them from drawing the ire of various political groups and help Nintendo maintain a low profile. These guidelines precluded things that you might expect, like sex and drugs and graphic illustrations of death, things like that, but also some things that you might not initially think of, like domestic violence, ethnic and nationalistic or sexual stereotypes, and political messages and things of that nature. The seal of approval and quality was mostly a seal indicating that the game was free of this sort of content, rather than actually ensuring quality. LJN, for instance, had the seal of quality on most of their games, all of them I think, and in fact I'm pretty sure every Nintendo game of the era got this seal as long as they weren't bootleg cartridges like Cheetah Men or something. This is one of the primary functions of Nintendo of America upon its founding, to act as a filter, both in the sense of filtering out which games come to the West, but also what kind of content makes it into those games that do come West. Many of those restrictions often softened. Make no mistake that in 2006, Nintendo of America was still a filter. In fact, by 2006, I would argue that Nintendo of America was in the middle of a resurgence in that role. And why wouldn't they be? Put yourselves into their shoes, coming off the heels of a very kid-friendly GameCube console and diving headfirst into a very highly successful, high-profile, mainstream, very kid-friendly Nintendo Wii lifespan, and then Mother 3 comes to your desk. People really seem to want this game, you say to yourself. Maybe we can bring it to the West. Let's have a look inside, shall we? Here's one you might not have considered, but would definitely have raised some eyebrows of the folks over at Nintendo's Treehouse. During a tragic moment in the opening chapter of the game, Flint loses himself to a fit of rage and hopelessness. In this somber moment that sets the tone for the rest of the game, Flint lashes out at the people around him, the people he loves and calls friends. This isn't Flint hitting an enemy for damage, he's abusing the people around him. This is a scene that sets a few important things into motion, landing Flint in jail, where some important things take place. Nintendo might be able to script the game differently, maybe have Flint fall to his knees and his friends surround him and fade to black or something like that. But how do you explain Flint winding up in jail? He needs to get there. Nintendo can't exactly have someone say,
"Sorry, Flint, had to throw you in the pen because you nearly drank yourself to death."
Something like that, because depictions of drug and alcohol abuse are still probably something Nintendo of America would shy away from going out of their way to include in the name of covering up domestic violence. Nintendo using drugs and alcohol to cover up domestic violence. Who wrote this script? It's like it's been genetically engineered to be suppressed. Throughout Mother 3, the protagonists have more than their fair share of run-ins with the mysterious military force called the Pig Mask Army. These porcine, jackboot-wearing, gun-toting forces are generally depicted as bumbling idiots for the most part who don't really understand what it exactly is that they are doing. They don't realize that they're the bad guys.
Are we the baddies?
Regardless, they just follow orders to a T, wreaking untold havoc on the world around them by unleashing massive fires across the countryside or directing lightning strikes towards the homes of political dissenters. The Pig Mask Army, furthermore, are heard constantly playing some sort of anthem upon arrival and departure, whilst repeatedly throwing their hand into the air in front of them, reminiscent of some salutes from real-world fascist regimes. Well, who can say how much of this was intentional allusions to real-world military forces of the not-so-distant-as-you-think past, or how much of it was borrowing from Star Wars stormtroopers, who were also heavily borrowing imagery from those real-world regimes. But if you were Nintendo of America, it might be safer to rework some of those assets and animations to distance your first-party title further, just in case. Oh boy. This one's a bit of a doozy, and it was for a long time what I thought might be the biggest reason, or maybe even the only reason, that Mother 3 hasn't been brought to the West yet, and for pretty good reason. Within the world of Mother 3, there are a group of magical guardians of the Nowhere Islands that are referred to as Gypsies. And there's our first problem. Gypsy is obviously a portmanteau of where the first part, Magi, refers to the priest for Zoroastrianism and other religions of Western Iran, and the second half is an ethnic slur used to denigrate Romani people. And yes, I gotta spell that one out because a lot of people in the United States don't even realize that it's a slur. Clearing up that little bit shouldn't really be all that tough, just change the name, fine, here you go. But here's the next issue. These magical guardians of the Nowhere Islands are depicted as pink-haired cross-dressers or drag queens, and they refer to themselves and each other with female pronouns. The mementos that they leave behind are lipstick and razor blades, likely a reference to their ever-present stubble. With only our American context for cross-dressing and gender identity, the depiction of these guardians might feel like the punchline of a cruel joke. And this is certainly a common point brought up in the discussion of localizing Mother 3. Bringing this game to the West would certainly open Nintendo up to the ire of people upset by Japan's handling of its Okama culture. However, the pendulum swings both ways, as there would also no doubt be a great deal of hand-wringing coming from some people who would be deeply concerned at a video game exposing young children and individuals that don't conform to their neuropuritanical views on gender roles, and that whole tired dog and pony show we've all seen play out dozens of times before. So, if you're Nintendo of America, what do you do to avoid becoming the subject of the next hashtag on Twitter? How do you navigate the minefield without angering the LGBTQIA+ community, religious groups, or perhaps the scariest and hardest to please of any of them, the anti-censorship crowd? Simply put, you can't. If Mother 3 ever does come west, two of these groups are almost certainly going to be very pissed about it. And here we are, with the fourth and final real reason that Nintendo wants to avoid the Hornet's Nest. And it's the last one, but I don't believe that it's the least. And in fact, it may be tied to previous reasons. Political messages. And I don't mean the kind of political message where I am once again asking for your support by liking this video. No, I'm talking about the subtext of Mother 3. The town of Tazmily, found on the Nowhere Islands at the beginning of Mother 3, is a town without any money. There are depots where you can get things that you need free of charge. You can take your grains to the bakery and they'll make you cookies free of charge. The people live off the land, work hard, and share with one another. The people are peaceful and contented, and there's no crime at all. In fact, when Flint ended up in jail, he was the first person to ever get locked up in there. And there wasn't even a sheriff around to do it. In essence, Tazmily is a...
Told you, we're an anarcho-syndicalist commune.
Yeah, that one. It isn't until an interloper appears and introduces this paradise society to the idea of money and paying for goods that society starts taking a turn for the worse, where the denizens no longer care for the elder population, sticking them into nursing homes, where they no longer care for one another and instead care only for themselves and their own families. It wasn't until their communist paradise was subverted by money and introduced to them by literal capitalist pig armies that life started spiraling the self-destructive path of self-absorption and wasting all day in front of the happy box, an in-game analog to computers. And when you think about a capitalist pig subverting communist societies, I don't know about you, but my mind immediately starts conjuring up images of the US military invading Vietnam in the name of preventing the spread of communism. And if we connect the dots a bit from the nationalist stereotypes we talked about earlier, it would be a trivial matter to interpret this as comparing the US to Nazi forces in its spread of Western imperialism. Nintendo doesn't want to embrace bringing video games to the West with political messages, and Mother 3 itself is a political message. And I think that the last thing they want to do is offend their fans by insulting their gender identity or political leanings or being accused of publishing commie propaganda or something like that. But with all of that out on the table, is it really any wonder that Nintendo of America doesn't want to touch the game? It's a tangled up Gordian knot of gender identity politics, fascist imagery, and domestic violence so twisted that even if Nintendo could manage to untie the knot, we wouldn't even be able to recognize it by the time they were done. I think that those are the 4 reasons that Nintendo won't bring Mother 3 to the West, and I'm positive that there are others that I haven't even begun to touch on yet. But I truly hope that I'm wrong. In fact, I have made this video in the hopes of jinxing myself, thereby forcing Nintendo to release a Mother collection on Nintendo Switch. Prove me wrong, Nintendo. The fans demand it. But hey, if there's any additional reasons that I missed, be sure to leave them in the comments down below. This video is a bit of a heavier subject than what I normally like to cover, so get subscribed to see the next fun stuff that I've got planned next. Have a great day, everybody.